Hello and welcome to episode 148 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Drogyn1701, and with me are several deactivated people, Markhawkman, Greendragoon, and DuncanIdaho.
How are we supposed to talk if we're deactivated?
I just reactivated you.
Yay!
On purpose?
On purpose. And please welcome back to the show one of our frequent guests, but not for a little while, Fazag.
Hey everyone, glad to be back.
How are things in the Upside Down?
I'm pretty good. Unfortunately, I haven't been in Stowe for a bit of a while because of, well, stuff. But I'm back here. I'm in Roundtable. I'm in Star Trek Online right now, and I'm actually looking at the chat to see if there's anyone that's want to join us on the chat. You're welcome to do that as well.
Yes. So my deactivated reference earlier actually comes from something that just happened, like, I don't know, a few minutes ago. Our whole thing that we were going to do tonight was going to be to show off the new lighting updates in the Tribble Foundry on the test server. But they just launched a new patch for it, and unfortunately the Foundry has been taken offline again. So we can't show you any of that. So it's been deactivated. So you'll have to forgive us if we improvise a lot of what we're going to do tonight. So we do have at least a few screenshots of stuff that we observed, and we can tell you about the things that we observed on Tribble, because we did have a good 5 or 6 days to take a look at it. So, Dragoon, I think you have a few screenshots.
Oh, sure.
So, general
Right.
impressions for me is I think it's a little bit less pronounced than most of the rest of the game. But we are going to see definitely a lot of differences, especially in that we have a lot of objects that generate light now, where they didn't before. They just looked like they did.
Yeah, lights that actually generate light. That's amazing.
You can see like those 2 lanterns there.
Another thing that's kind of amusing is that previously we had certain graphical effects that weren't actually like tangible objects, but things that you're just like glowing balls of energy that you could place on the map, which previously were not light sources. Now, well, you know.
One of the most pronounced that I found was the the Cardassian generator, which is the big animated thing. It throws out a ton of light, and it's all moving too, which is quite cool.
Awesome.
But obviously beware, it does do that. If you don't want something that does that, don't use that object.
Well, with the Cardassian generator, though, isn't there the version of the generator that's I guess you'd say dead and doesn't glow?
Yep.
It's actually in pieces, and there's
Yeah,
there's got a few versions.
Yeah, so there's the deactivated version, the intact one, there's the intact functioning one, and there's like, well, you can basically all the individual parts for it, so you can assemble it as you go, pretty much.
Let's see, what else did I notice? Consoles, of course. Consoles are a big one. Obviously, consoles we use a lot in our building because this is Star Trek. And those throw off a lot of light now. Well, not a lot of light, but some localized light. So if you walk up to a Romulan console, your face will glow green.
The one exception to those I found was some of the civilian consoles, which don't glow. Some of the sort of silver geometric ones, not the blue Federation style. Yeah. But those ones, oddly, I was expecting those to be light sources, but unlike some consoles, those do not have lighting effects attached to them. The one thing that has me absolutely terrified, and hopefully they'll fix this, is ironically, the one light source we did have, which is the omnidirectional lights, are not working on the build of Tribble that we got.
Yeah, that's potentially concerning for anybody who has.
I counted, and there's 18 maps that I would have to redesign in some way to accommodate for that, or completely redesign. So, please, Dev, so get those back working, because I don't want to go through 18 maps to try to get that working again.
Yeah, it's probably just one of those things where they haven't gotten around to adjusting that to work properly.
Hopefully.
I mean, because the first version of the lighting update had all sorts of bizarre, wonky things. So
and it did get an update with today's build, the lighting system. They announced some tweaks to bridge maps and 23rd century maps.
Awesome.
So another issue I noticed is what I have up right now is the ground, this custom interior I built on a ground map. I just kind of threw it together to kind of test the lighting. But up here, this is the same map on an interior map, and you'll notice that none of the lights are projecting. So for some reason, it looks like the stock maps, the baked stock maps, will produce light, but any detail objects refuse to produce any light on an interior map.
And you know, it was like that with the old Omni lights too. They did not work on interior.
This is true, but back then I could just assume that maybe we were already at the light limit, but now that excuse is out of the way, and it means it's some other inconceivable thing that I have no idea what's happening.
I could not tell you. One thing that I noticed is, and I did not get the chance to compare this to a similar thing on Holodeck, but I decided to build a little room with a window with some pillars in the middle of the window, facing towards the sun on like a sunset backdrop, and it really cast some nice shadows into the room using that. So that was very cool. And I don't know if it necessarily does that as well on the current lighting system.
There's some nice shadowing effects, and I've taken advantage of them specifically for Apex most of all. But I built some similar structures in MyGo. I didn't take any screenshots of this because I quickly found something else I had to, cower in terror from.
We'll get to that in a second.
But in general, though, like a lot of the lighting, it's much smoother. It feels really solid because even when you're at the lower graphic settings, it's just the shadowing effects look a lot better now. Yeah. A lot smoother, sort of not a huge sort of big change, but it's just, it's just that little tweak that's like, oh, okay, that looks really good.
Yeah, I think just the entire way that they're calculated and worked out is just completely different.
And this may be one of those updates where you want to go back through some of your old maps and see if they still work the way you want them to work. And if not, to try and rethink them a little bit. I think that's something that I'm going to do.
I'm definitely going to have to do that.
It's definitely what Cryptic has been doing up to this point with all of their maps.
Sure.
I can think of one map in particular that I'm going to want to look at on the new lighting, and that's the Starship interior I did for Darkness Between the Stars, because I put all sorts of stuff into that map, and I have no idea whatsoever what it's going to look like after the lighting update.
Yeah. For Apex, I did.
For sure.
There's 3 lighting sources there that I turn on at various points, which are actually really important for the atmosphere of that map. So if those go out, I'm going to have to think of something completely different. And probably I'll have to rebuild the dialogue for the KDF mission, because I do have those 2 versions of Apex. So if I change one, I'll either have to duplicate every change on the other one, or depending on how it goes, just create new Klingon dialogue after recopying the original Fed version.
So tell us about the other big bug that you encountered.
So we've called it the Lights of Zetar when it's been applied on Nukara Prime. Yep. But basically on every single exterior ground map except the empty ground map, or at least on my end, Primar tried to replicate it, and he wasn't able to. So at least on certain hardware, it will explode into your eyes and stab you in the eyes with very, very, very bright rainbow light. So we've got a couple of different versions of this. So this is on the Robotic Dunes ground map. So certain parts of the base map seem to be very, very, very oddly colored, and that gives off a tremendous amount of light. So on higher graphic settings, it just is this almost intolerable blur that is basically like petting a Medusan. So if ground maps on Tribble, at least for some hardware, do not work in the Foundry. This is Rurpente, the current one on the stream, and that's just like, oh god.
Well, one thing that I would like to point out is that it's probable that they haven't completely finished adjusting all of the graphics stuff to the new tech yet.
Yep. So it's just all in test, but it does kind of worrying me because this is Rurpente, so this does exist in the normal game too. I just haven't been able to test that to see if that version is having problems, or is it just specifically the Foundry equivalent?
You'd have to go play one of the early KDF missions to see.
Well, for what it's worth, I don't think it's specific to the Foundry. I think it's because it's inconsistent. It's probably a problem with the textures loading in.
Yeah, so
I have experienced this in the main game, which we
one thing that Taco has mentioned is that individual texture files will often be used by all sorts of things in the game. I mean, like for when he did the revamp of the Fed console textures to make them more colorful, we had random consoles that Taco didn't even know existed getting updated because they happened to use the same console textures that he was tweaking.
So real quick, right now on the stream is another screenshot I took, minimizing all the graphic settings except for lighting 2.0. And this one reduces the bloom effect entirely, so you can basically just see what's going on with that ground map. So it is very rainbow colored.
Like a crazy quilt draped over the ground. I mean,
yep. And each one of those, if you turn up the lighting settings, is giving out an incredible amount of light. So that's what's going on currently with exterior ground maps on some hardware at least. And specifically on lighting 2.0, lighting 1.0 perfectly fine, looks normal.
And we should point out that you made a nice bug post for this, and it has gotten some dev attention. So
yep. So
we'll hope that they can do a fix for that.
And I also mentioned in that thread the problem with the Omni lights.
Good. Well, hopefully we can, I don't know, beg, bribe, or whatever to get the Foundry turned back on, and hopefully by next episode we can actually go in and show it off. But one thing that we are expecting with this patch, which is going to come out on the 25th, is some downtime, because we've been told that this is actually a new code branch. And new code branch means Foundry downtime.
Hopefully it will be a short one, but we don't know.
We never quite know, but the last one was really short. I think Zero told us that they had streamlined the process.
What's it, typically about 1 to 2 weeks? Just in the last few patches?
Yeah, it was. I think the last one was less. We had typically been seeing about 3 weeks before that.
Oh, that's right. We were all set up to do out of Foundry content, and then Foundry comes back.
Well, actually, that was what was it for Agency yesterday, which actually was not a code branch, a new code branch, and it didn't have any downtime at all.
Yeah, I just logged on and just realized, wait a minute, why is my mission journal still displaying Foundry missions?
Yeah.
What witchcraft is this?
But for this time, we actually do know it is a new code branch, so we are going to see some downtime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing to point out with Agents of Yesterday is that they'd actually rolled out the code branch in a previous patch. So it's not that there wasn't a new code branch associated with Agents of Yesterday, it's that we had the downtime prior to the Agents of Yesterday event.
But anyway, that is all to come in 2 weeks. So we've got some things planned. We're going to do some more live plays of classic Trek games.
Yeah.
I believe next on the list is Armada.
If I can get it installed and working, that's kind of the challenge with these.
RTS.
I have gotten it working in the past, so I'm sure you'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
Are we going to be, well...
I have to keep Googling until you find the one that works for you.
Does anyone else have a copy of Star Trek Legacy for the Xbox?
Not for the Xbox, but I got it for the PC.
I've got it for PC. Yeah.
I got the Xbox.
Well, one of my personal favorites of those old RTS games was the Pirates of Orion game.
Yeah, that was the expansion for Starfleet Command 2, which is probably the best of the Starfleet Command games.
We've got some comments. Apparently there's a Windows 7 Plus patch for both Armada 1 and Armada 2, so they want to know which one.
Cool. I mean, if it's up to Armada, or if it's up to Windows 7, it'll probably work on Windows 10.
Probably. The nice thing is that you're usually not the first person who has tried to get these games to work. Yeah. So if you just Google, how to play how to play Armada on Windows 10, it will come up with somebody who has found a way.
It'd be so much easier if they just released it on Good Old Games.
That's what I like about Good Old Games is they actually tweak the games so they actually work on modern systems without you having to do anything.
Yeah, GOG's patch for Master of Orion 2 is basically to give you an installer that installs an emulator for DOS and then runs the game through the DOS emulator for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's what what was the other one we were playing, 25th Anniversary?
Yeah, 25th Anniversary was run through DOSBox.
Yeah.
Which is really the only way you can get a game that old to run on modern hardware.
Anyway, okay, so next we're going to show off the Foundry map. So, if you guys want to hit Entrevue.
Mr. Bate.
It's very true. Sorry. I just had to borrow some lyrics from Weird Al for a moment.
So, CaptPFDennis, a longtime Foundry author, very famous as Foundry authors go, has been working on a new mission, and for it he needed a 23rd century Romulan interior, which of course we don't have, and we have never had. So he decided to build one, and we're going to show it off. He said it doesn't require a whole lot of explanation for the things that he used. Obviously, he had to make do with what we have in the Foundry. So,
well, one interesting thing is that the Stowe devs have never actually made a 23rd century Romulan interior map.
Ew.
They've done some 23rd century Romulan assets, but they've never made a full Romulan interior with them. Because one thing you'll notice when you go to Galorndon is that it uses the modern Romulan consoles. They didn't make 23rd century Romulan consoles.
So one of the things that he and I talked about when he's been showing off stuff with this map is that, obviously there was no 23rd century Romulan consoles available to us in the Foundry. So, he had to use Federation ones with the reasoning that, it's like the other TOS stuff in the 60s. Obviously, it was all repurposed of the same sets. So, they would have used probably some Federation consoles back in the 60s, too. My favorite part of this map, though, has to be, how we set it up so you see the rest of the ship out the windows.
That's
got to be a Skyfile, right?
No,
it's one of the ground scale ships.
Yeah, he built the map on top of a ground scale ship asset. If at just the right angle, you can see that the entire hull of the Tavaro goes underneath the floor.
I can also see way in the distance the 5 foot, 5 foot, 5 foot repeating texture file.
Yeah, that's kind of the tricky part with this map.
You need to just put some 500 by 500 foundation blocks down. Covers it right up. Just need 4 across the entire map, and there you go. And if you put those down first,
the illusion that you're in space, though.
No, not if you use the black one.
Yeah, it kind of fades.
Well, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, that's what I used for
If you're really far away.
on a few of them. The Epoch Part 1 Starbase Magellan is built that way. And what's nice is that if you start the map...
I wonder what happens if I push the button.
If you start the map, like just building process, putting those 4 foundation blocks down, you can just... everything else is going to be laid on top of that in the mini-map and the building editor. So you can still really easily build on a... on that type of map, even with the foundation blocks down, because you're not going to be covering anything up, if that's the very first thing you do.
So this is a pretty simple build, but it's a good example of what you kind of achieve by using the assets we have. Like this thing is one of the water pumps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking the thing in the center is a station.
Yep.
It's one of the ground stations.
I think you're right.
One thing that I thought was a neat touch is how on this side here you have these spinning impeller blades that look like they're like sucking air to the machine or whatever.
It looks primitive, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I do like another neat touch. It's just all the sound effects on the consoles. That just it just really helps sell the 23C aspect. We definitely.
I found a blinking navigation beacon on top of this thing.
It's
I'm not sure I realized
status light.
I'm not sure I realized before that these consoles give off that noise, but they do. Because you hear it when you get up close to them.
Yeah. It's one of the few times where the sound effects can really help sell a Foundry mission.
And the other thing to note with this map is how he used the Romulan doors for walls. We have these closed Romulan doors.
With very nicely positioned ship pillars to help hide the seams, too.
Yes.
Also add a little bit more to the art side. Do like
those. He may... I'm guessing that he has utilized Omni lights here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he may have to redo some things if those continue to not work.
Actually, the new lighting has the lights actually cast light.
Yeah. So on this one, he might just take those off and things might look pretty good.
Yeah, the ceiling lights. I have not tested those ceiling lights to see if they actually give off light now. So
I have to wonder if these TOS consoles will light up like Christmas trees, because they look like they have a bunch of glowing bolt thingies.
Possibly, but I noticed that some consoles do have a lot of glowing elements, but it's not sort of a universal thing. And if there is sort of a lighting source, it's generally sort of like one display. So for some of the generic ship consoles, you'll just get a blue light, even though there's a lot more going on the screen.
So the nice thing about the new lighting system is you can see on the floor where there's all the weird patching, where the floor panels are being affected by one light but not another, because they're over their light limit.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be a thing anymore. It'll all light evenly.
Mm-hmm. And that'll be nice for carpet objects like this, because when they don't have those lights going on, they actually blend pretty seamlessly.
For some... Oh, wait. Oh, no, I found a seam. There's like a millimeter gap in the floor.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Right here.
Well, this is a version that he put together and saved off for me a few weeks ago. So he could have made tweaks since then.
Oh yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Anyway,
you got to be standing right on top of it.
Yeah.
Speaking
of
that, though, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in my most recent Starfleet security mission, I did spend quite a lot of time, I actually kind of do this in general, making sure that there are no lighting conflicts like that, which is why I kind of need those, like the Omni lights specifically, because I do very precise, I want the 25 foot light, not the 35, because the 35 is just a little too big for this environment. It's the scaling, which is great. But it does take quite a lot of effort just to get that right, and you do really have to think about it when you kind of set off. Especially with some part like this where you have a bunch of, it's not a regular pattern. So it's easy if you have the floor carpet item, just follow along with the pattern of the lights. But that means that you sort of have to have the two go in sequence. So if you break the pattern, like over here, where you just have the mixture of carpeting patterns, then you're definitely going to get one of those, just the lighting conflicts.
I think he was having a hard time because of the way this this hallway zigzags. So he's kind of trying to keep lights in the one room away from lights in the other, and
yeah, that can be pretty tough.
I don't think we'll have to worry too
the
much.
new update though makes it so that walls block lights, doesn't it?
It should, yes.
yeah. But I mean, also the light limit not being an issue anymore is going to be.
Yes.
Still not sure if I'm actually going to just build in the new lighting engine. I'm definitely going to test it out, but I actually might, at least at first, build in both because I'm not quite sure like what the adoption rate is. So if I start building with lighting 2.0 and someone's playing on lighting 1.0, it's like, oh, this looks terrible. So it's probably worth keeping in mind when we get started with a hopefully functional Foundry with lighting 2.0. That at least at first you might want to just make sure that both are working for any given map.
I just thought of something kind of amusing. Look at the outfit my character is wearing. How many light sources do you think I'm wearing?
So, yeah, that's a thought. Quite a number. And that is an outfit that we do have available in the Foundry. So you wonder if, you're going to have... It might change the way you build costumes. Actually, I think we talked about this a while back with the Borg lasers. Because we know those are light sources now. So it might change the way you build costumes a little bit. But one thing that you reminded me of, Duncan, when you found a flaw in Captain's build here, is the value of having somebody of watching a playthrough of your map by somebody else. Because Timberwolf from the show has been playing a whole bunch of my Foundry missions and has been videoing them. And the first one went up. It's one of my older missions. Well, all my missions are old. It's Cold Winds is the first one he did, which is my one that's based off Star Trek V, which I thought was hilarious.
I got to check that one out because I did do Star Trek V riffing in my second to last Starfleet Security.
Yeah. I for some reason I have a great deal of amusement with the worst of Star Trek.
It has such a fun character to it.
I love Star Trek V. I love Threshold.
I have to say the basic concept of Threshold was very amusing. It would have been more amusing if they'd found some plot gimmick other than the Warp 10 travel, though.
Yeah, and just as an evolutionary biologist, evolution doesn't work that way. You can't just speed it up and it happens in a predictable sequence. You need selection pressures over a long time period.
Well, also there's the fact that when you have a ridiculous amount of random mutation, having it come out exactly the same way more than once doesn't happen.
No, not statistically.
The real problem with that episode is a problem with a lot of Voyager episodes, is that it really just overly relied on technobabble.
Yeah.
But I think I tweeted earlier this week that it's a good thing I'm not in charge of Stowe, because you'd have playable Janeway Paris salamander descendants.
They would have been
in
the Delta.
And a T7 Jaeger class.
So what would you call Janeway the species?
That's a good question. What would you call those? You can't just call them salamanders.
I'd go with a temporal. What's the word for it? Temporal salamanders, maybe.
I would go with
transwarp salamanders.
They would have evolved because, again, you've said basically, throughout Star Trek, you basically threw out the laws of evolutionary biology, like throughout the whole series. Like it's a topic Star Trek has never done well with. But I would just have them evolve into an independent species and call them the Jarrus. Janeway Paris.
Not the Painway.
But would they actually know that they're progenitors, to use the best word I can.
They've
No, Painway is the nickname that Catherine Janeway uses when she gets in the MMA ring.
Sunkatse.
Well, here's what you do, Drogyn. You make up a follow-up Foundry mission where you go on a quest to find what happened to the salamander babies.
And we do have
And then you can have Zero in there.
Maybe they're humanoid now.
You can have Zero in there as the lead scientist on this obsessive quest to find them.
I know she likes this one too. So
we've got Ryzen lizards.
Finding them is actually shouldn't be all that hard because Voyager should have a record of what planet they were on.
We know
they erased that one in particular. Janeway just went into the computer core one day. It's like, oh, looks, I spilled coffee on this one particular part of the processor. Oh, guess you can't find my lizard babies now.
Yeah. I never had relations with that helmsman. Anyway. So let's move on to what we've been working on. I know Duncan has been doing some stuff because he posted some cool costumes the other day.
Well, just before we move on just yet, there was one other bit of news.
Oh, yeah, right. Go for it.
So Timberwolf, surprisingly, recently got to interview Salami Inferno, and which is Steve Ricosa. And he actually talked about, or answered about porting Foundry missions to console. What he said was, the question was whether we would see the Foundry missions on Tribble, and he answered by saying, importing the entire Foundry database to console is a technical impossibility. It would just be too massive to do, and a lot of it has to do with because the PC version will dynamically download things as needed. You see it all the time with that dynamic patching, and the Foundry relies on this. So when you pick up a mission, that mission wasn't always on your computer. It has to download it from the server. And console apparently can't do this. The files you have are the files you have. Now, he did say that they are looking into porting over select missions, but it's a more difficult process than just copy-pasting.
So it would seem that would more or less mean that they would take what they consider to be the best, probably the spotlights, and essentially make them like halfway official parts of the console version of the game in order to add them as playable.
Yeah, but basically
you have to be locked off versions.
It sounds like basically they would have to make them part of a patch.
So, I mean, since we've had a long time since that Spotlight list has been updated, and there's been plenty of very good quality missions, and great missions, 5-star missions since then. Maybe we ought to do a little thread in the forums where people can nominate things. Obviously, with the idea that this is just recommendations that we could give for great missions.
And the usual caveat of you can't recommend your own missions.
Yeah. That makes people think.
Yeah.
Well, it keeps people from nominating all of their own missions.
Yeah. And obviously we have no power to make this happen, but
I would start with Bios Falling and Vulture Wheel just because I like them.
Yeah. Think critically about what mission would be great for a console setting. I really like Johnny Snowball's Shore Leave Under Siege. It's the one that I could not think of the title when we were doing your Vegas video, Drogyn. Even though Johnny was standing right there. And I'm not sure that'd be good for a console setting, though.
I would go with Saving Gideon by Johnny. Because that one does seem to work a little bit better with a console. Yeah.
I think you want maybe a little bit less dialogue heavy, a little bit more action oriented.
Yeah, and that one has some great set pieces too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely an interesting thought about what is good for console.
Basically none of mine. Well, I think Apex could probably sneak in, but yeah, none of the SSFs I think would be, well, except SSF 2 inversion is kind of light, but still I wouldn't recommend it because it's basically in the middle of everything.
I think a number of our Iconian War missions probably would be good candidates.
Yeah. Catastrophe at Kate was was sort of my favorite of that bunch by Sir Boulevard.
Yeah, I mean, Midas missions might be a little on the wordy side, although Eve of Resolutions is probably fine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I'm just trying to think about mine. There's definitely quite a few. I've got some like puzzle heavy ones, which I don't think would work very well. But
I'd actually, one more I'd put in there is probably Epoch Part 1, if we were sort of shamelessly self-promoting. That one is actually, it's very tight, and the dialogue is kind of at a nice optimum, and it's got the optional component too. So that one is sort of the interesting set pieces, different environment, and it's probably my most polished. Besides, actually, I'd put it over Apex for polish.
Either way, I mean, I think I'll at the very least throw it out for the community to answer, and want to know what you guys think. What do you think would make a good Foundry mission on the console? Keeping in mind that they literally have everything voiced over there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, not quite everything.
Almost everything, and it's definitely the way that Cryptic has been pushing. They definitely did not expect people to sit and read massive amounts of text.
Yeah.
But I mean, also, guys in the community, I mean, what are some missions you know of that you think would make good console missions?
All right.
Well, for Crash Falling, it actually has several very fun fights on the ground, because the basic plot is that you are leading a task force to subjugate the Creosian homeworld, because they've decided that they want to be part of the Federation, and as subjects of the Empire, they're not allowed to be part of the Federation. But yeah, lots of fun, because it's not flat terrain. The guy who made it built a pretty nice city, and you have to run around on top of buildings and stuff as part of the fighting.
That's what you want is one that's exciting to play, rather than exciting to read.
Yeah.
So anyway, now we can move on. So Duncan, tell us what you've been working on.
So a few things. So I posted a couple of the screenshots in the chat feed that I posted on Twitter. And right now, I'm not looking at getting into any major building, looking at more side projects. But one of the things I did do is start adding more costumes to the Epoch Part 2 project that I've got going on. So I ported over Epoch Part 1. So now it's just cleaning that up and getting that ready to start building. So posted one of the new Synthics, and also a new character who's going to be showing up in the mission, Prometheus from Apex. He's back. So we'll be finding out, well, we already found out his backstory in Epoch Part 1, but we'll be seeing where that's going in Part 2. So that's the first thing I did. The second thing I did was launch a new mission. Apex, or not, sorry, not Apex. Entanglement, the third episode of Starfleet Security Season 2, is now out. It's in review. It's sitting at about 3. So, it's just starting off life. It's emerging from its little shell going peep, 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 peep. But anyway, that's done, and that's pretty polished. And, yep, it's my Frankie mission. It's been a little while in development, but it's good to go. And then The last thing I did was start a little experimental thing. I did a commentary playthrough of that mission, Entanglement. So my idea is sort of do a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit of commentary, and then broaden this out to other missions just to keep sort of doing sort of more, not necessarily outreach, but just sort of just showing off more missions in the Foundry. So more videos, just because, you know, Timberwolf does a bunch, Urzul has done a bunch, Zero does some, and it's like, well, I might as well add to the pile. So I've got a few in mind that I want to go through for a commentary run, and then a few in mind right now that I'm just going to play through. These are other missions. So one of Johnny Snowballs and one of Starfire Thetas so far. That'll hopefully be going through and providing dialogue, which is pretty good. First run, well, good isn't terrifying. But just more sort of Foundry exposure.
So we will make sure to put your the address for your stream in the show notes. Do you know about sort of when you'll do these?
No, I've just been doing them ad hoc. So my first one ad hoc, I posted it to YouTube, and I'll probably be doing the same. So I've got a little thing set up there. So the next one, I was thinking maybe tomorrow, since I've got the day off, and then just kind of see how things go from there.
And I can probably,
But it was,
I can probably include a link, like a playlist on the Foundry Roundtable that I can link over to your videos.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
The more the merrier, because we always love video playthroughs. You know, it's valuable for the author, and it's great for exposure for the Foundry, and fun as well.
Yeah, this one was pretty fun. It's interesting to do on your own, because you definitely, especially if you read all the dialogue, you do notice when you've made a typo. So a little bug hunting in that first one, but it does at least, like, it forces you to sort of check out from what you were thinking when you were building it to just playing it, which is really hard to do when testing or even playing a mission when it's on holodeck. So I'll just right now I'm just going to throw a link over in the just so you guys have it for show notes and stuff like that. Posted that in the Skype chat, and I'll just post in the chat room too for people who want to take a look at it after the show.
Excellent. Speaking of video playthroughs, we've been hearing rumblings about BroadcastUGC. So Baz, what are you able to tell us?
BroadcastUGC is uploading some of its older stuff. Temporal Anomaly. Who knew that temporal anomalies could be so handy? It's coming back to YouTube. Broadcast/UGC. It's got its own channel. And in other news, I have been working out on some streaming stuff as well. So I don't know if those... I can't say whether those are related, but I've been doing some streaming stuff on Twitch and YouTube. And we'll just see where things go from here.
It's all highly classified, you know,
yes,
stuff.
You've interrogated me.
Yes. But we made you give up only those details and no more. But in any case, BroadcastUGC, of course, was a show done years ago, playthroughs of Foundry missions.
It started 5 years ago. That's
one of the
just
earliest
after season, just after season 4 started.
My buddy Galactrix was.
Yep. We were. I was planning on doing it. Well before season. But I was just getting it ready just before season 4 hit, and as we all know, that sort of. It was pretty horrendous. So, what 2 months or something, the Foundry was down. So,
5 weeks, if I recall.
It was at least 6 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a long time, and that sort of like lost interest in that as well. But out of that, BroadcastUGC was started, so I'm glad for that, and we'll just have to see So at the moment, as far as I'm aware, I have talked to Galactrix. There'll be some more videos coming out every week, Friday nights on the YouTube channel. So we've got our first ever episode up there now, and there'll be more coming next week, and the week after, and the week after.
Neato.
It's great to see the old institutions come back from the dead. If only we can get Paul to resurrect Primetime UGC, that would be great. Obviously, that was a ton of work, so much more work than what we do here. This is, like low budget, low effort, or what's Deadpool's catchphrase? Maximum effort. Said sarcastically.
Yeah, I think the show at least I've gotten down to it's pretty efficient. I can usually get the whole show out without ever even having to download the episode to my computer.
Yeah. All right. So, Dragoon, have you been doing anything exciting?
I haven't, unfortunately. Someone kind of inspired me to pull out my Steam Runner Captain character, as I'm kind of working on that. Because I hear the Steam Runner is getting a new visual refresh.
Yeah, tomorrow, in fact. That was in the patch notes for Redshirt, so that will be going live tomorrow, probably. Yeah, the Steam Runner getting a new model. That'll be awesome.
It's foreshadowing.
I'm flying. Foreshadowing our Armada playthrough.
Yeah.
Live play.
Both run Tri-Cobalt bombers.
Yeah. I do actually have a Tri-Cobalt bombing build on that one. Not sure it's really all that good, but
you can probably do something a little pretty good now with neutronic torpedoes. With the if you have overwhelming force, which is a cross-faction lockbox ship trait, you get that little bit more of a shockwave. So if you do a high yield on a neutronic, you do get that big shockwave explosion.
Intriguing.
One thing that I found to be a whole lot of fun to play with is the Tri-Cobalt cluster torpedo.
I had fun on that with a shuttle.
So, Mark, have you been doing anything fun lately?
I've been tinkering a little bit with my older stuff, working on, Osa Patrol. I've decided that I want to add a part where you have the Borg cooperative people come to Qonus and then have them talk to some representatives of the High Council. I haven't finished that, though. But, that's what I've been working on adding to the mission.
So I, after seeing Timberwolf's playthrough of Cold Winds, I actually ran into an issue there with some BOF pathing. Obviously, we know how that goes. It was in the Jeffries tube build, which I learned from you, Dragoon. For some reason, the BOFs don't want to go inside it anymore. I'm pretty sure they used to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little finicky. I mean, you can probably adjust the positioning slightly and might be able to get it to work.
Yeah, it's possible. The other option is, because I do actually have some combat on the other end of it after you exit the Jeffries tubes, I could remove that and say, have a little BOF dialogue that says, we'll stay back and cover you. You go in and fix the thing.
Yeah, but then what if the BOFs do manage to get through?
I'll have a little optional captain dialogue that says, what are you doing here? I thought you'd say behind to sacrifice yourself. Get back there and die for me like you said you were going to. But anyway, that and another little tweak that needs to be done. I have some warp stars that are not quite very well aligned for a ship to go through. So, but that is definitely invaluable to watch that and see, to see if people get the things from the mission that you want them to get. Like, I always look for when people play that mission. I always look for that moment where they say, "Oh, this is based on Star Trek V," because it's always a good reveal, and to see if people get the connections, and see if they can kind of think about what might be coming up.
Just out of curiosity, did you do a fan dance joke?
No, there's no fan dance jokes.
Okay, I'm good.
But I did redo the famous line, which I refer to as the greatest question ever asked. What does God need with a starship?
There is no other question in that movie. It's like...
It's the greatest question of our time. Anyway, the other thing I've been doing is I thinking about doing revamps of maps and things coming up with the lighting update is, that I've always wanted to... Currently, my first set of missions that I ever made are not published. Is a set of 5 missions called the Descent series. And I've always thought about, re-releasing those and doing them and completely changing them around into making them into Romulan missions, because they were actually made before the Romulan faction ever came out. And I wanted to make them into Romulan missions because it all deals with the Romulan Empire. And then I was thinking today about moving them up in time to basically current events in Stowe, sort of after the Temporal Cold War arc, and revisiting, what is going on with the Romulan Empire at this point in time. It's going to be, like a shell of its former self, but obviously it's still there. I don't think the Republic has taken over everything.
No.
Sela has voluntarily gone into custody this time. So Sela is not in charge.
That one might be dangerous. That's just a little too risky of cryptic countermanding your canon.
Hey, when you're in my missions, you subscribe to my canon.
Unless, of course, she is gone by the time the mission ends.
Always write it later.
Well, I wouldn't include Sela as a character. So, the idea is that, you go deal with the sort of political system that is in charge of the Empire these days, which is the Senate, which under Sela, was probably not much of anything that had any power, but probably does now. So, yeah, that's basically where I'm at on that. So, anybody played any missions lately?
Nope. Basically, I've been a little busy trying to make sure that Entanglement gets off the ground just fine. So I've played that a whole bunch of times, but it's probably not fair for me to review a mission that I've not only done commentary on, but I also built myself.
I don't know, that could be a challenge. Review your own mission. And,
be like Jeremy Clarkson
and try it.
5.
Yeah. It's really hard to take a critical look at your own stuff.
Or really easy, but then you just go completely overboard on the criticism.
Yeah.
So it can kind of go both ways.
You can either be your own best friend or your own worst enemy, right?
Yeah. On some of these, I know which way I'd go, which is, this is all terrible. I know exactly what I had in mind, and I never achieved that potential.
Rip it apart. Do it again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
that's Epoch Part 1 after I made Inversion. Like pretty much just like, oh, I like the concept, I didn't like the execution, I'm just gonna try it again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in lieu of Foundry missions, how about this? Has anybody seen any good movies lately that you might be able to take some kind of lesson or plot device or something into a Foundry mission?
Okay, so it's movies as in general movies, not just theater.
Yeah, anything.
Okay.
Any film.
That doesn't help because the last movie I saw was, oh god, this is not a joke. It was the Force Unleashed in theaters.
Awakened.
Or Force Unawakened. Yeah, Unleashed is what I like.
The Force Unleashed is the old film.
That was what I...
Or no, not the old game.
It was the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
That was a good one. But
yeah,
no,
those are good games.
Yeah, The Force Awakens was literally the last movie I saw, like, in general. Everything else has just been documentaries and YouTube.
Well,
Let's see here. Last one I
help.
actually watched in a theater was Star Wars 7.
I think the last movie I saw in the theater was Beyond.
Yeah, same here.
I saw. I don't know if I saw Beyond or Suicide Squad for. Can't remember what order they came out in.
Well, it doesn't have to be a movie you saw at the theater.
Oh wait, I've got one. Jack Frost, The Mystery Science Theater. I did watch that somewhat recently, and that doesn't help because, or actually, no, it does help.
It's
a
really terrible film, so it's like
it's really terrible. But the plot
Really?
structure is actually something that might be an interesting Foundry mission. It's not a single plot; it's a number of vignettes. And generally, we would structure those as different missions. But I'm wondering if there would be a way, or just a conceivable plot, where it's not just one mission, but 3 connected subplots that just together make an overall arc.
That can be kind of difficult.
Yeah,
because you end up with somebody might be thinking, why are these one mission?
Yeah, and that's the tricky part. And they'd have to be short enough that it would play to one mission.
Because I have run into missions, and I think it was back in the AEI series when we were reviewing those, is that I think there was a mission where it was essentially 2 plots and had nothing whatsoever to do with each other, and you wondered why they did it that way.
Oh, that was Apex.
Was it Apex?
I'm going to say it was Apex.
I don't remember it being Apex, actually. I remember it being...
There are 2 things going on in that mission. They don't have much to do with each other. There's just a thematic connection. So yeah. I'll totally own up to that one. Regardless of which one it was when you played it.
I'm not thinking it was Apex, so...
I'm going to say it was Apex.
But in any case, I think when you're doing a Foundry mission, I think you really actually want to go the other way, which is to have everything be relevant. I mean, you could have a B-plot if you want, but... Yeah.
Well, I would make the B-plot a side effect of the main plot, even if it's not directly connected.
Yeah,
and at least be sort of connected a little bit throughout the thing, and it's not independent of.
An example of that is my latest mission, actually. I had in my second... to the latest Starfleet Security, the second episode of season 2, I had a subplot in there that I really liked, but it was very bunch of subplot. It was kind of buried underneath, though. So it was just sort of something in the background, a little bit like Apex. So for my latest mission, I actually had a legitimate B plot going on through the mission. So you have the sort of the current investigation, but the reason that it's structured the way it is throughout the mission is because one of the characters has amnesia. And that's the B plot. And it does work its way back around to the main plot. But for a little while, it's kind of there's two sides to the investigation.
So we should probably define what an A plot and a B plot is. The A plot is the main storyline that gets the majority of the time. And then the B plot is something else that happens concurrently. Star Trek did this a lot in its episodes, where you would have 2 things going on. You'd have some kind of main, or some sort of mystery they're investigating. Usually, it could be to do with exploration, could be somebody found a dead body, could be any of that, and then you would have some sort of B plot that would be something personal to a character, and sometimes it would have to do with the main story. Sometimes it would be, character needed to learn a lesson and they learned it by participating in the main story. Things like that. And sometimes those would be reversed, where the more personal thing was the main plot and there was something else going on that was the B plot that affected the whole ship.
I could think of 2 pretty good examples from TNG. First one is the episode Imaginary Friend. It's hard to label which of these is the main plot and which is the B plot, but the first plot that you see revealed is the Enterprise is in this previously unexplored by the Federation nebula and is analyzing the structure of the nebula and so on and so forth. The B plot is how you have one of the inhabitants of the nebula wandering around the Enterprise pretending to be the imaginary friend of Clara Sutter.
See, I think that's one of those where that's actually the A plot.
Yeah, like I said, it's hard to figure out when you're watching the episode which one's really the A plot and which one's the B plot. But the Clara Sutter part of it does get more screen time, so I guess you could use that as a way of saying which is the A plot.
One from Enterprise. I think this was Silent Enemy. But the sort of the main plot is fighting the what we find out is the Alachi in Star Trek Online. But you're fighting the Enterprise is dealing with that. But there's this, I believe it's this episode. If not, it's going to be a similar one, where Hoshi is trying to figure out what Malcolm likes to eat for a birthday surprise.
Yeah.
And that was kind of more, that was a more of a, I think, a clear example of sort of the A, the B, where it's like if you have Fistful of Datas, you have kind of two things going on with them experimenting with data and plugging them in as a control interface. And then you have a Worf, Alexander, Troy plot in the holodeck. And those sort of start out as two separate things. Maybe the data thing is the A plot, maybe the holodeck is the B plot, but they sort of end up as sort of really sort of on par with each other. So they kind of finish as joint A plots.
I think okay, so I got a tricky one for you. Data's Day. You got one plot that is the Vulcan ambassador who turns out to be a Romulan spy. And you've got the other plot, which is Data trying to understand human emotions, plus Sans also learning to dance, while Keiko and O'Brien are about to get married.
Mm-hmm. I'd say the bit with the ambassador is definitely the B plot.
Which is funny because typically that would be the A plot.
The focus is on Data. Yeah.
Well, see, that was the thing with Imaginary Friend too. Is that the interactions between Clara Sutter and Isabella were what consumed most of the time on screen, which is, but, you know, from an in-universe perspective, they weren't really the part that was the most important, I guess you could say. Although, as a representative of the aliens living in the nebula, the opinion that Isabella had of humanoids did actually have a significant impact on the exploration mission.
Of course, as Pax points out, for Data's Day, essentially the plot of what Data's doing in this episode is an amalgam of a whole bunch of different things, rather than sort of one through plotline. The thing that connects those is Data. Isn't this the one where he's putting together a report for Commander Maddox about what his
yeah? So it's kind of like Dear Doctor, where it's him
that's sort
writing
of
a letter.
the through thread. Yeah. But you know, procedural shows thrive on this. You know, they have the main mystery that they investigate, the mystery of the week. You know, which for most procedurals starts off with a dead body. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking. And then you have something that the characters are talking about with each other throughout the whole episode, usually. So
I'm also,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm also thinking The Simpsons here. So Homer, for example, goes to become a truck driver, and Lisa and Marge buy a doorbell.
Yeah, that's a good one. I remember that one. I was thinking of the latest NCIS, where you had the main plot of criminal activity going on, and then you had Wilmer Valderrama's character trying to find an apartment was the B plot.
Do you guys ever listen to or follow those Twitter accounts, which are like TNG Season 8 or?
I've seen a few of those. Yeah.
So But I mean, they almost follow this to a T because the format will always be something happens, period. A couple of characters do something.
There was a mission I was going to make.
I was thinking of from CSI, which more or less the same thing as NCIS, but was like you said, the main plot is they have whatever criminal case they're working on, but the majority of the drama is the B plot, because if they actually wrote the episode so that all of the focus was the A plot, it would be boring. Because actually, going through, it's like, okay, we collected the evidence, we turned it into the lab techs, and now we're going to wait until the lab techs get back with us. Flash forward to the lab techs getting back to them, and there's not really a whole lot of room for drama unless you oversell stuff for idiotic reasons.
Procedurals sort of live and die on their characters. If people like the characters, they're going to tune in to see them do the same thing every week. And so that's what you have to do for a procedural. And the way you establish these characters and the way you build their characterization is to have these B-plots. These things that they do throughout the episodes that don't necessarily have anything to do with the main story.
All right, I got a challenge for you.
And you can do that. You can do that in a Foundry mission, by the way.
Can you think?
Can
you think of any cryptic mission that even has the remotest hint of a B plot in it?
Yes, actually, I can. That would be the one where you pick up Ambassador Saketh.
Diplomatic orders?
Yeah. I mean, granted, the A and the B plots are tied together very closely, but there are definitely two separate plot threads with it. I mean, one of them is the fact that, you are escorting Saketh to whatever he wants to do at P'Jem. Some Klingons try to stop you. You curb stomp the Klingons. And along the way, you try to piece to get together why Saketh wants to go to P'Jem. After I played that mission a dozen times, I still have no idea why Saketh wanted to go to P'Jem.
To replace the Grand Abbot. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the best example. I'm thinking of What Lies Beneath.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing with the guy in the serial killing hologram is a B plot, because it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the reason that you went down there.
Yeah. Okay, I can kind of see that one.
Yeah, that one I would say is the only example I can think of. The diplomatic orders, I wouldn't necessarily separate those as two separate plots, as more so that there's a development in the A plot that involves another faction.
I think that one is what you would call a plot twist.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm thinking
that's sort of the main trope you have in that one.
Well, you could say that it develops the Klingons, as in it introduces Bavat and a few things like that.
Yeah. The other one I can think of is if you pursue the dialogue options for Tovan Keev's sister in the early Romulan missions, because that could become a B plot if you engage that option.
That is true.
That's true. Yeah,
and that's over multiple missions.
Yeah, that actually follows all the way up until installation 18.
Yeah. Spoiler, find her.
And she's never heard of again.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not the one that said you find her. I just said that the plot thread ends there.
Legacy of Romulus
that's
has
been out for a long time. I don't mind spoiling that. When we get a new featured episode, that's when we worry about spoilers. Which actually we're getting one soon. Yay! And actually, it's going to have to do with exploration of some sort.
Is there any B plot in Agents of Yesterday?
B plot in Agents of Yesterday.
I don't think Daniels is enough to count as a separate plot. It's pretty tied into the main plot.
Yeah.
Maybe Chekhov's interactions with Scotty.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, and which pays off later, much later, like hundreds of years later.
More like a
I still
proto
love
plot
that.
than a full-on B plot.
Okay,
But
so Pax has a good point here. He says the Delta recruit and temporal agent storylines are
Okay.
basically B.
I think that would be constitute a genuine B plot, especially since they're built to run in tandem with the main plot.
Yeah. So you got lots of you get B plots throughout STO.
Was there any story though with the?
There's various levels of intrigue. So there's a lot of different sort of facets that involve different factions. So it's, Nakul Raiders coming in and doing something. So a lot of stuff is referenced, but with a few exceptions, I don't think there's a whole lot of activity.
And
at least Delta Recruit kind of built to a culmination.
Yeah. There's actually all of your Agents of Yesterday characters are living a B plot once they get to the 23rd century, because they will essentially, according to the story, be concealing the fact that they're from the past throughout the whole rest of the game.
Yeah, more or less.
There's no content to go along with that after you get to the 23rd century, but it's there.
Unless we make Foundry missions for it.
The Delta thing can actually be a C plot in certain circumstances, because it is possible to team up and have an Agents of Yesterday character go through a mission with the Delta recruit and have both of them do their special objectives.
They're both sort of.
I've actually done that.
Things going. That would actually be fun. I think it could be fun to make a mission where the fact that you're supposed to be concealing that you're from the past comes to the forefront and becomes an A plot.
Always
that could be
plenty
interesting.
of opportunities.
Someone make that mission.
I've maybe toyed around with that for what to do after Starfleet Security, but we'll see what I eventually pursue.
I'm not convinced yet that Starfleet Security has an end.
That's the thing, is that it could. Like, there's one more mission in the current season, and I might pick it up later, but there's something else I want to work on first besides that buck. New thing. New thing.
Well, one thing I just thought of is that one of the missions that I wrote actually does kind of sort of have your character pretending to be someone they're not. Although I don't really spell it out because, in this mission, you go into the past to stop a Klingon by the name of Jigor, who is one of Bevat's lackeys, from conquering a Romulan settlement in the past and using it as a way of upsetting the balance of power and, blah, 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 eventually conquer the Romulan Star Empire before it should have been, etc. Anyway, thing is, though, is that when your character is going around and meeting the Romulans, you're more or less not telling them who you are or where you're from or when you're from. They know you're not just some random passerby, but, they kind of sort of don't really know who you are.
So if you recall my original question, which was, what movies have you seen lately and what could you bring to the Foundry from it? What brought it to my mind, other than, vamping because we couldn't do what we were supposed to do tonight, was, okay, so last night I watched Phantasm, a movie from back in the 70s, a horror movie. I watched it because, okay, they recently released a remastered version. I think Bad Robot had something to do with it. And I kept seeing on the description, this much beloved classic horror movie. And I watched it. I thought it was kind of terrible. But what the heck, sometimes it's okay to watch bad movies. And the concept I bring to it that you could bring back into the Foundry is characters making really bad decisions, which is a staple of horror films. Oh yes, let's go into that scary house with the cannibals. That seems like a great idea. So when you're figuring out what your characters are going to do, there's no need to always have them make the right decision. They can do stupid things. Even your captains, you could have them make the wrong decision and show the consequences of that.
Yeah, you just have to be careful about. Don't make it obvious that they're making the wrong decision at the time.
Yeah,
because then the players get mad.
Make it a wrong decision in hindsight, because of course we don't like being railroaded into doing bad things.
Yeah, like the original Divide at Impera.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure everyone knew what was going on.
Yeah, it's just a little bit too telegraphed.
Well, Zell acted suspicious, and that was really the only thing that truly made it telegraphed. If not for the fact that Zell acted so suspicious, it wouldn't have seemed telegraphed to me. I mean, because Zell said some things that made absolutely no sense in the context. I mean, like ordering you to make sure to kill all of the Romulans you see in the station, and not to just simply, stun some of them, and not. Zell actually explicitly ordered you to kill everyone.
And we went along with it. Yes, sir.
Because don't disobey orders unless you're allowed to.
Zell did have a half-baked explanation for it, as she was ostensibly making a half-hearted effort to keep the mission secret by eliminating all witnesses. It doesn't work, but that's what she claimed that she was trying to do.
Admiral, there's a group of school children here. Kill them. Okay.
I think some captains would balk at that.
Yes.
But I mean, it's kind of the...
On at least one occasion, went out of my way to avoid killing some of the enemy groups, because one thing I figured out is that the aggro ranges, and that certain of the enemy groups, you could actually just walk around them if you were careful not to aggro them.
So, of course, the thing about Stowe, because of its linear nature, is that you are not allowed to disobey orders unless the story makes you disobey orders.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, I wonder if they were ever to rebuild something like that, I wonder if they could, because they can do optional objectives, but I wonder if they could do it in such a way that maybe the Admiral's ordering you to kill it, but there's a way through the mission that doesn't involve that.
Well, we have seen that they actually have the ability to randomize mission objectives. They have done that in at least one mission. So obviously, there is at least some flexibility in how you go about accomplishing the mission.
Yeah, which is actually tech they didn't have back when they made Divide at Impera. That's a more recent thing.
Actually, you know what? Was it Divide at Impera, one of the missions that they hurriedly rushed through building prior to the original launch?
Yeah,
it was one of the very original mission. Yeah,
it was one of the first groups.
Which explains why they actually made one of 3 and didn't bother with the other 2.
That's right, because there's supposed to be 2 other follow-up missions to that.
It was supposed to be. Well, anyway, let's see. Anybody else got any discussion items they want to bring up?
I do, in fact.
You do? Okay.
Recently, I was digging through my old Google Docs and found this. It's a sheet of special characters that I found that will work in the Foundry. So, for those that don't know, special characters are punctuation and symbols and whatnot that are in the font, but not necessarily characters you can find on your keyboard. So I just kind of started randomly going through, because you can actually type in what are called alt codes. And it's a Windows thing. It's basically where you hold down the alt key, type in a number on the numpad, and then release, and it'll insert that whatever character to the corresponding number. So at the time, I actually went through and found that there were quite a few symbols that we can insert into dialogue and whatnot that he didn't really know about.
I'm going to be using Music Note.
Yeah,
I'm going to
so,
see. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I've got this. I can use that for. But I also see that 1/2 and 1/4 actually might be nice little touches. If you're referring to impulse, just nice clean way of referring to those.
So there are some fun ones. You can obviously make bullet points. There's like this really tiny double exclamation point. If you ever messed around with Word, maybe you've seen the carriage return symbol. Likes to display. Upside down question mark.
But it's actually a Spanish punctuation symbol.
An upside down
Pi
question
is
mark.
in there.
Pi is in there.
Pi is in there.
We've got double arrows. Gotta point to something.
Vertical lines on the keyboard.
Vertical line is on the keyboard, which I only included because there's also
there's a difference. There's an actual solid vertical line, but the character on the keyboard is actually something that has like a break in the middle of the line. It's not actually a solid line.
It's solid, at least on mine. I used it for very briefly.
Some keyboards have it displayed differently, but it's supposed to not be an actual like solid line.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. But this particular vertical line is actually going back to ye old DOS days to, which probably not a lot of people remember. But before graphical user interfaces, they used to have these like characters designed to make up boxes so that they could build like rudimentary windows out of text. And so those kinds of symbols are still kind of technically part of the ASCII key set. And so I found a few of them were actually supported in the font that Stowe uses. So we got like...
Okay, so Pax is asking about the delta symbol, which I think somebody found, right?
Should,
the delta symbol?
Well, if I remember
one of you
right,
guys
most of the
that.
Greek alphabet is actually in there.
Yeah.
So some of the Greek letters are so similar to the regular English letters that they may have skipped them and just let you use the English letter, but some of them are actually like completely different, like the Omega's character.
I thought somebody had been putting Delta Recruit style things in their missions and had found the actual Delta symbol.
I think so, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about that. Because maybe I'm thinking
like
that Pax...
It's just a Greek letter.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you mean like a purple one?
No, not purple, because that's not something we can do, but just in the text.
You can definitely put the capital Delta in chat. Not sure about the lowercase one, but they're pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes into chat, it's probably... hang on. Yeah, I guess you can.
Of course, I've encountered some characters that you can put in... you can put in the Foundry, but you can't put in like ship names in game, like accented letters.
Well, see, that's one interesting thing is that certain of the dialogue boxes in the game have character limitations that, to a certain extent, are rather arbitrary. Because
Pax was saying that he does. The Delta symbol is available. He's just wondering if it was in Greendragoon's document.
I just added it, but I don't know that I have the alt code for it, so it might be one of those you have to find and then copy paste it.
sure Pax will be able to tell you.
And in Windows, there's a really good tool called Character Map, CHARMAP, which allows you to search and select and copy all these different weird special characters. So there's a whole lot more out there that may or may not be usable in Stowe.
Okay, the single vertical line is character 179.
And obviously, not all of these characters are going to be supported. It's a kind of up to every font, which ones they include and which ones they don't.
Do you know what font Stowe uses? Because if we could set the right font, then we'd be able to see all the ones.
I don't exactly. I mean, this list is basically something I discovered by trial and error.
It's also something that they may or may not have customized because, you can do that with fonts.
Well, it would be, it would be associated with the font, even though the font may or may not have it. So if it's in the font, then it should still be usable in game.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just numbers to the computer.
Well, actually, it's all just on and off to the computer.
True. If you really want to go down there.
It's all ones and zeros, man. Ones and zeros.
We're in the Matrix, man. The Matrix.
Matrix has you.
So yeah, I mean, there's a few things that I've found I could use, but I didn't have all codes for, so I just... Part of the reason I created this document so is in those cases I could just copy-paste them out. But you can do some kind of cool things. I mean, these lines are kind of considered or what are called box characters. And like I said, in ye olden days, they were used to make windows before Windows was a thing. And I just see Mark's like going to town in the chat. But you can actually make some like rudimentary ASCII art out of them. Unfortunately, Stowe's font is what's called variable width, so they will not line up perfectly, and there'll be gaps between each of them. But still, I think originally when I did this, I made a like little picture of a isolinear chip I was playing around with. So you can definitely mess around and do some fun things.
I'm trying to build an alien language, but I've only found one character that works so far.
That could be an idea, is use these special characters to create some kind of language.
Yeah, and it's definitely a case of not everything will be supported.
Dang it, why did the first... Like, I just got lucky with that first one.
And it's hard to say whether, if you can use it in chat in the game, if you can use it in the Foundry.
It should be.
You'd have to test it.
One thing I did know is because it's variable with alignment, if you get all the alignment worked out, like in the in like standard text, and then you just try and throw like a out of character text or mission info, it'll throw off all your alignment. So it requires different alignment setup.
Also, I think that the UI scan changes the way the text is displayed slightly. So if someone's using the Romulan Republic UI, it actually displays letters in slightly different shapes than if you're using the Fed UI.
I can't even remember how to change the skin
options, and it's going to be basic down below. It's you have color palette underneath cursor.
Oh, yep. Okay, got it.
Ooh, 23rd century's up there for general use.
Yep.
This is something that I actually first noticed when I was making screenshots of duty officers for the wiki a long time ago. I could probably find those. Because I actually posted them to the Stowe wiki, so they should be on there somewhere.
Tech says there doesn't seem to be an alt code for the uppercase delta.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just scrolled through all of the
Greek letters.
Yeah.
It's in character map. It's just doesn't have a alt code associated with it. So
it's possible that the game actually has limited Unicode support.
Yeah, it's probably. Yeah, I mean. So,
and of course, some of these don't appear to work with our Twitch chat. That's for sure.
Something else you'll notice in here, I had a couple of ones for no break space and narrow space. I found as I was trying to build my little ASCII art that the dialogues would try and cut out extraneous amounts of spaces. So I couldn't use a normal space to kind of space out my lines to get them to line up. So these are kind of the things I stuck in to help with that. And the narrow space is kind of nice for the fine-tune adjusting. So getting two like vertical lines to line up.
Okay, here I'm posting the links in the Twitch stream. Yeah, just like compare those two pictures, and you'll see what I mean about the UIs being different. Okay, one of them's Klingon, the other one's Fed, but you get the idea.
Yeah, you definitely see differences when they're side by side like that. The Federation sort of header font is much wider than the header font for the Klingon side, for instance.
And of course, this will have an impact on anything you try to do with ASCII art.
This is actually something I deal with a lot in real life because, of course, one of my jobs, one of my duties is I build newspaper pages. So I'm always dealing with, fonts and, whether things are too wide or too narrow or, I need to widen this to take up more space or things like that. So,
yeah. You might need to make something narrower, otherwise it'll hang off the edge of the page or something like that.
Exactly. There are technical terms for these things like kerning and letting and all that kind of stuff, and I always forget which is which. So I know how to do it. I don't know the proper names for it.
Kerning is the spacing between the letters.
There you go. Baz knows. It's like back when I used to play the trumpet in high school. I could play the music, but I did not know which one was an A and a B and a B flat. I was never very good at reading music in that manner, but I could actually know, I knew what that's. So that's how I did it. Fake it till you make it, right?
Either way, I will share this list. I'll include this list in the show notes.
So anyway, I think we will call it a night for this evening. Hopefully we can get them to turn on the Tribble Foundry for our next episode, which will be the last one before the anticipated downtime. We also would like to do another Foundational Foundry recording as well. So you can look forward to that in the coming week. But for now, Dragoon, why don't you put up our contact info?
Okay. We can be reached by email at foundryroundtable@live.com. We are also on Twitter at Foundry Roundtab. Drogyn can be reached at Drogyn1701. Duncan can be reached at Gorgonops_SSF. Mark can be reached at Markhawkman. And I, of course, can be reached at Greendragoon. And, of course, be sure to respond to our community question, which was what missions do you think would make be good on console?
And don't forget my Twitter, that's Basalonia, BAZALONIA. And if you do want to follow BroadcastUGC, that's on Twitter as well. So BroadcastUGC on Twitter and YouTube.
Excellent. Well, thanks as always for joining us, Baz.
It's been a pleasure. Glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you back. And we will say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Or good morning for you, Baz.
It's actually afternoon.
Afternoon.
Now.
I always find it amusing that Australians and Canadians call it Zed.
And the British.
It's a Commonwealth thing.